This is the devastating story of Michelle Lee, a case that shocked the community and exposed evil hiding in plain sight. The afternoon at the hospital parking garage looked normal, just like any other day. It seemed like anyone could come and go as they pleased. Michelle Lee, a nursing student, walked to her car but never made it home. She was caring and dedicated. The area was empty, and no one was around to witness what happened. Eventually, her locked and empty vehicle was found. At first, it looked like she'd just disappeared into thin air. But the truth was way more terrifying. Someone driven by rage and jealousy had put together a plan that blindsided everyone. This was why she vanished. What really went down in that quiet parking lot? Who was lurking there waiting for her? Michelle was born in San Diego, California on October 12, 1984. She grew up in a big, tight-knit family. Her house was always buzzing with activity, surrounded by 15 cousins, tons of aunts and uncles, and her parents. She lived with her parents, her brother Michael, and their cousin Christine. Michelle looked up to her mother, a caring nurse, and wanted to be just like her. After her mother died, that dream became her life's mission. Michelle took care of her family as a way to honor her mother's memory. Michael, her brother, talked about how Michelle rose to the occasion with love and strength, becoming a role model for everyone. She showed her cousins and siblings how to cook and drive and was always ready to help them when they needed it. They all relied on her. Even though Michelle had to wait 5 years to get accepted into a nursing program, she eventually got into an intensive 1-year course. By May 2011, she was almost done, just 6 months away from graduation. It was Michelle's last day of her clinical rotation at Kaiser Permanente's maternity ward in Hayward. She'd gotten perfect grades throughout her studies. Always upbeat and hardworking, Michelle was known for her can-do attitude and jumping in to help with extra work. On May 27, 2011, she worked her regular shift at the hospital. For student nurses at the place, Friday was the last day of their rotation, and everyone was pumped for the weekend ahead. Michelle had plans to drive to Reno to see friends. At 6:55 p.m., she told her supervisor she was heading to the third-floor parking garage to grab something from her car. Her white Honda SUV was parked quietly in a corner. Later, security cameras showed Michelle walking toward her car, pausing, then suddenly going a different way. After about 17 minutes, her SUV finally drove out of the parking lot. By 9 p.m., when staff rounded up the students to finish the day, Michelle was missing. Her jacket was still in the break room. Her phone wasn't being answered and she hadn't signed out. Worried, her instructor teamed up with hospital security to check the parking garage where Michelle normally parked. The place was silent and deserted. Suddenly, Michelle's SUV came back to the hospital, pulling up to the third floor. Her teacher yelled out trying to make the car stop, but after stopping for a second, the vehicle turned around and took off again. The teacher was sure it wasn't Michelle driving because the behavior was totally unlike her. She immediately called the police. By the next morning, Michelle had been gone for over 10 hours, and tons of friends and coworkers showed up at the police station. Convinced something was seriously wrong, police started their search in the hospital parking lot. Soon after, investigators found blood stains where Michelle's car had been sitting. Around 9 a.m., they located her SUV locked in a visitor's space near an apartment building not far from the hospital. Inside Michelle's bag, along with her laptop and ID, was another ID belonging to someone she didn't recognize. That ID had supposedly been stolen just days before Michelle went missing. Police quickly ruled out a random attack. This looked carefully thought out. It seemed probable that someone who knew Michelle's schedule had used the stolen ID to get near her. Hospital records showed that about 30 minutes after Michelle left for her car, a woman pretending to be Michelle called the emergency room trying to reach her teacher. When told she'd reached the wrong department, the caller asked for a message to be passed along to the right person, saying that the father of Michelle's children had a heart attack. Meanwhile, as police towed Michelle's car for examination, her brother Michael got a text from her phone saying, "I'm okay." Shortly after, another message came through saying, "I'm not missing." There was a message explaining that something was up with her phone, everything had been wiped and the battery had died. Friends also got texts, but each one had a different excuse. Her tire was flat. She'd gone back to Reno. It was clear she wasn't doing well and needed a break from Facebook and other social media. When her ex-boyfriend sent a message, the response was just, "Who is this?" By May 31st, the reward for tips had reached $20,000. Within just a few days, that amount nearly doubled to $65,000. A private investigator hired by the Liu family got involved, and over 100 volunteers joined the search. They divided into 14 groups covering huge stretches of land. Eventually, the reward jumped to $100,000. As police dug deeper into Michelle's life, they kept coming back to the name Giselle Esteban, an old friend. The two had once been super close and even roomed together during college. Giselle was dating a guy named Scott Marasigan, and together they had a 6-year-old daughter. After Giselle and Scott broke up, things heated up again between Michelle and Giselle. Michelle and Scott had gone on a few casual dates before, but both agreed that staying friends was better. Still, Giselle couldn't stop wondering if there was something more between them. Even though there was no real reason to worry, Giselle started acting weird around Michelle. Michelle wouldn't cut things off with Scott just to make Giselle feel better, feelings that weren't even real jealousy since Scott was just a friend. Michelle had moved on and was dating someone else. That's when Michelle and Giselle's friendship ended. When police talked to Giselle, who was 27 at the time, she didn't hide her intense dislike for Michelle. The investigation soon focused on Scott. What they found next would completely change the direction of the case. Scott had always been around, and many people who knew Michelle were familiar with him. He'd even pitched in with the search efforts after Michelle disappeared. Detectives were surprised by how genuine and clearly upset he seemed during questioning. Scott opened up about the ongoing drama with his ex-girlfriend Giselle. Their relationship had been rocky with constant fights. At one really tough point, Giselle had moved back in with her family, taking their daughter along. Despite all the chaos, Scott stayed deeply worried about his daughter's safety. He tried multiple times to work things out with Giselle to create some stability, but those attempts never worked. Scott showed police a long string of messages from Giselle, many filled with rage and hostility aimed at Michelle. One of the first texts read, "I hope you find what you're looking for in someone as disgusting as her." Another message called Michelle a homewrecker and warned she wouldn't be a problem for much longer. The threats got worse with texts like, "Your girl will get what she deserves," and "She won't pass her midterms."
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
Giselle had also sent Michelle messages demanding she stay away, including one that said, "If you were ever really a friend to Scott or me, you'd just leave us alone. You're the one who followed me to San Francisco." Things got even creepier when Scott played a recording he'd secretly made during one of Giselle's angry explosions. Their daughter was sitting in the back seat of the car during the recording. In it, Giselle talked about Michelle and made bone-chilling threats. Her cold, steady voice warned, "If you do it again, this is your last and final chance. I'm going to kill you and her. That's something you can take to the grave." Scott explained that Giselle had gone through a psychiatric evaluation at the hospital where she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and manic depression. She'd sometimes show up uninvited at his house, sneaking in quietly and sitting alone until someone spotted her. Eventually, Scott was granted full custody of their daughter. After this decision, things got even worse. Giselle moved back to Hayward to be close by, and the situation escalated until a judge issued a restraining order keeping her at least 100 feet away from Scott or his family. The restraining order was granted just 3 days before Michelle Lee vanished. Around the same time, Hayward police started working with Fairfield authorities to look into a similar case from the year before involving a nurse with the same last name who'd disappeared without a trace. Unlike the Fairfield case, Michelle's car was found locked and secure, showing that whoever drove it last was careful not to leave any evidence. Surveillance footage was being examined, and her family still hoped for her safe return. However, that hope started to crumble when they learned that Michelle's blood had been found inside her vehicle. Although details were scarce, police confirmed that Michelle's disappearance was now officially being investigated as a murder. Despite the crushing news, her family refused to quit and kept searching for her. Giselle's name kept popping up during the investigation, leading police to formally question her. At the time, she looked pregnant and claimed she'd been at the hospital the night Michelle disappeared for a checkup. When asked about their past friendship, she said things changed after what she called a betrayal. After the interview, Giselle was let go, but police kept watching her closely, even putting a GPS tracker on her car. They were sure she was involved in Michelle's disappearance, though it wasn't clear if she acted by herself. Investigators wondered if she could have pulled off the crime alone given how small she was. As suspicions grew and more proof came in, Giselle became the main person of interest in the case. A forensic team went with police to Giselle's apartment, carefully examining her car and going through her trash for evidence. Despite all the attention on her, no formal charges had been filed against Giselle at that point. She publicly denied having anything to do with Michelle's disappearance. But the investigation took a sharp turn when Scott alerted police to a creepy discovery: Michelle's phone was found in the back seat of his own car. Surveillance footage showed that Giselle's car had driven by Scott Street multiple times, often stopping outside his house. Authorities believe she purposely planted Michelle's phone there. Security at the nursing school checked access logs connected to a stolen ID badge, which was later found in Michelle's Honda, providing more evidence. On May 26, just one day before Michelle disappeared, the badge was used to enter restricted parts of the campus, and surveillance confirmed it was Giselle Esteban who used it. Giselle got the ID by pretending to be a potential student. She walked around the building trying to open locked doors and classrooms. Later, after school hours, she came back wearing a white lab coat, went in through a back door, retraced her path, looked at computers, and eventually got to a teacher's desk where she checked schedules for Michelle and other students. With this knowledge of Michelle's location and class end times, Giselle had everything she needed. Cell phone records showed that Michelle's and Giselle's phones were in the same spot at the same time after Michelle disappeared. Witnesses saw Giselle go into an Apple store the next day where she asked employees to unlock an iPhone, saying her daughter had accidentally locked it. After getting in, she left the store and was caught on surveillance using the phone to send fake messages to Michelle's friends from a nearby restaurant. Cell tower data proved it was Michelle's phone that Giselle was using while pretending to be her, as shown in the video. Even without a body, investigators had collected tons of evidence. Giselle Esteban, age 27, was arrested at her home and charged with first-degree murder. Michelle's blood was found on the bottom of a pair of shoes near Giselle's front door. Also, a strand of Giselle's hair was found inside Michelle's car, and her DNA was detected on the steering wheel. When Giselle was arrested, Michelle was still missing. Her family reported, "Our focus is and will always be to bring Michelle home. We can't feel at peace until we know where she is." The case got even darker for police after they looked at Giselle's computer. In the days before Michelle disappeared, Giselle had been Googling how to secretly cause heart attacks, how to follow someone without being noticed, how to get into locked areas, and the effects of poisons like carbon monoxide and potassium chloride. After Michelle didn't come back, Giselle searched her name online over 300 times. Then, on September 17, 10 days after Giselle's arrest, Michelle's family faced their worst fear. Michelle Lee's body was found in a shallow grave in a remote, rocky area about 12 miles from Giselle Esteban's home after 3 long months of searching. The remains were so badly decomposed that only bones were left, making it impossible for the coroner to figure out the exact cause of death. California police confirmed that the body parts found in a canyon in the San Francisco Bay Area belonged to the nursing student who'd gone missing in May. After pleading not guilty, Giselle Esteban went to trial in September 2012. During the proceedings, she admitted to killing Michelle, but her defense argued that it wasn't planned. They claimed it was a spontaneous explosion driven by anger and emotion rather than a calculated move. Esteban's lawyers pushed to have the charge dropped from first-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter. Throughout the trial, Giselle stayed emotionally distant. She refused to testify in her own defense and never showed any remorse. People watching noticed her cold attitude. She sat perfectly still, expressionless, avoiding looking at anyone, and showed no reaction to the emotional testimonies from Michelle's family. Certain key details about what happened remained unclear. Prosecutors presented a strong theory, suggesting that Giselle either waited in the parking garage knowing Michelle's routine or deliberately lured her there with a message. Giselle used Michelle's schedule to know exactly when to catch her off guard and attack her violently, probably with a sharp weapon. This explanation made sense of Michelle's blood being there, how quick the crime was, and how Giselle managed to hide Michelle in the back of the car and leave without anyone noticing. The prosecutor described the crime in harsh terms, calling Giselle a sociopath and stressing that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
He argued that the attack was carefully planned and intentional, catching the victim completely by surprise. The jury found Giselle Esteban guilty of first-degree murder. True to form, she stayed emotionless as the verdict was read. Later, she even said that if she'd been on the jury, she probably would have found herself guilty too. The judge, who'd been on the bench for decades, described the evidence as some of the most disturbing he'd ever seen in court. Giselle Esteban was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. One family was destroyed by a senseless act of violence while another was ruined by its aftermath. During sentencing, Michelle's family gave emotional statements. When her brother Michael talked about Michelle's dream of becoming a nurse like their late mother, he broke down crying. Those dreams were cruelly cut short in a hospital parking garage in the Bay Area. Jealousy and wrong assumptions led someone to take her life. Prosecutors explained that Giselle was convinced Michelle was trying to steal her boyfriend even though there was no proof. That mistaken belief ultimately led to murder. While serving her sentence, Giselle later had a son. The baby's father was given custody of the child. Although rumors spread that Scott was the father, he denied it, and the real identity of the child's father is still unknown. After Michelle's death, her family poured their grief into activism, working with organizations dedicated to finding missing people and raising awareness for other victims. Michelle's brother, Michael, found some peace in believing that she was reunited with their mother. That thought, he said, helped ease some of the fear and heartache. If you found this case gripping, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.